Welcome to Amazing Indiana Music Stories.
You both grew up in French Lick, and about how old were you when you both started to perform or start learning music?
We moved the summer. I was in the 6th grade, and he was in the third grade, right? 2nd grade. And we moved to east side of Indianapolis. And our father was always in hopes of building another home after we left French Lick. So in the interim, before we moved the family to Fishers, we lived at 38th and Arlington, and we sang with our family in church, and that's where we met. He was in his first band, and I was in my first group.
What were the first instruments that you all started playing?
Guitars. Tom got a guitar first, and he started taking lessons, and I saw the Beatles February 9th, 1964 on Ed Sullivan, and that's all it took for me to trade in my trumpet at Sachs Brothers pawn shop downtown. Our dad took me down there, and he let me trade in my trumpet because he played a guitar, so he was all for it, you know. So we just stuck with guitars, you know, from then on.
I got a good story. See, our dad played guitar. He had a beautiful Gibson Sunburst guitar like some of these here. And he played it in the evenings after he got home from work. And we moved to Indianapolis. Me too. I wanted an electric guitar because I saw the Beatles. He took me down to the pawn shop, traded his guitar so I could have an electric guitar. We thanked him many times.
Were there any other members of our family that were musical, or was it just our father? No. We had a mother who played piano. We had a grandmother who played piano. We had 2 aunts that played piano. On our mother's side of the family, her mother, our grandmother, was raised in a time when you could either go to school, because you could afford that, or you get music lessons. She chose music lessons. Her sister chose school. All of her sisters, that would be our great aunt, I guess, all her grandchildren ended up being teachers or into politics.
They went into education, and every one of us went into music.
So it just worked out really well that way. But yeah, our parents both played music. They both sang in church, and just loved music. And that was, in fact, our dad tells us that the reason he married our mom is because he heard her sing in harmony, and he said, "I want to marry somebody who can sing."
When he was
harmony.
11 years old, he saw her.
So that's not the best prerequisite for a marriage, but it was my dad's, or his dad too.
Our sister also was in music for 36 years as a teacher.
Yeah, she played piano.
The Wright Brothers Overland Stage Company comes about. How did you come up with that name?
A very good friend of mine and Tim's,
repeat the question.
Terry Talbot and John Talbot were brothers. I sang with them in high school in a folk group called the Quincords. They went on to start a group called Mason Prophet after high school. Mason Prophet out of California was very influential in the country rock, very influential on the Wright Brothers when we were first starting. Terry came home and said, "You need a better name." I said, "We're calling it the Wright Brothers." He went, "No, you need more. Something like the Wright Brothers Pony Express, the Wright Brothers Overland Stage Company." We went, "That's it." And from that day on, we were the Wright Brothers Overland Stage due to our friend saying, "You need something else." We wore the long coats, the big hats. Before ZZ Top and anybody else, we had the big beards, and it worked out perfectly.
What is the photo shoot all about where we wrecked a stagecoach?
Oh my goodness. The summer we started like April of 72, and by that summer, we had a 4-piece band, Wright Brothers Overland Stage Company, and a manager. And our manager found a stagecoach in Bean Blossom, Indiana. It was used as an authentic replica in parades. And he asked for permission if we could go to the estate and have pictures taken on a stagecoach. It was in his backyard, and you had to go over some railroad tracks, up a hill, and around his mansion. And there was the stagecoach, and we were just going to pose on the stagecoach. But the young man who worked there asked if we wanted horses. He said, that'd make it really authentic. I went, yeah, let's get horses. This kid chases them for a half hour on a ATV.
Moped.
They don't want to be rounded up, but he got 2 buckskins. He brought them up an hour later, hooked them up to the stagecoach, and he tied the reins to the horse collar. There is no bridle.
No bits, no bridle.
There is no control. We have no business on this stagecoach. We know nothing about horses, and neither does the kid who hooked him up. So we climb up, and I'm on top, Tim's on next to me, and our Carl Henkel and Jim Spell are on the driver's seat. Carl has the reins, and the photographer was from the Indianapolis 500, UPI International. He started taking pictures, and the horses lurched. They lurched again, and Tim and I fell backwards because the third time they were off. They took off running, and I bailed over the side. They have a picture of that. Tim went over the other side. Our partners, they went straight for there was a guy wire from a telephone pole, and the wheel just ran right edge of it. They went around a basketball goal, got on the driveway, went around the front of the house to make the turn. The horses are going down to the barn across the road. They're going down the hill, but they didn't make the turn. The stagecoach rolled over, splintered, and we wound up going to a hospital because Carl Henkel broke his heel. And we were in cowboy gear, and we walk in the hospital, and I explain that we've been in a stagecoach wreck. And the nurse says, this is a hospital. I haven't got time for this. I explain it again. And the good news is it became one of the leading stories in UPI International. It got in 100 newspapers across the country. Turned out to be a great publicity stunt.
The problem was when we got to the hospital and the nurse asked, how did this occur? I did my best John Wayne impression. Well, I tell you, little lady, we're just in a splendiferous stagecoach wreck of the 20th century. And went downhill from there.
It was the last stagecoach wreck of the 20th century. We survived, though, and went on 50 years later. The most memorable performance we've ever had. You got one? I think our first...
There's several.
You can't, there can't be one. It has to be 5 or 6. But the first time we played a huge hall, Emmons Auditorium, Ball State University, 2,200 some odd people, sold out. And I can still feel how I was a wreck. I was so nervous. We'd never done anything like it. The next time we got to do Cluse Hall in Indianapolis, I'm talking when we were just starting, our first 2 and 3 years together. Those were really highlights. But then when we get to do the movie with Goldie Hawn, that's a highlight. Our first few times we played with an orchestra, and our music at Starlight Musicals at Butler University was, I get chills thinking about how great that was that night. And there's so many other ones that are people wouldn't think they were highlights, but there was a night at the Palladium when I think we sang and performed the best we've ever performed. Our dynamics that night, all 6 guys were just as in tune with each other, and I've always considered that to be the best night we ever had acoustically, dynamically, vocally, and the audience was great. A special night.
I think my most memorable time was the Today Show because that was so different to get a bus. We rented a bus. The bus driver took us to New York City. We're just gawking like, all tourists do. I mean, and these people, this was International Creative Management that we signed with. So this was fairly big time, at least we thought it was going to be. And they got us tickets to a Broadway show. I think we saw a chorus line. I think I remember that. And the next day we were going to be on the Today Show and, staying at the same hotel where Home Alone 2 is shot. I can't think of the name of it. It's right next to...
the Plaza.
Yeah, it's right next to the park there. Central Park. And so it's just an incredible feeling to be there, because we've seen that show since we were little boys. That show started in the late 50s. And so here we're going to be on there with Jane Pauley and Bryant Gumbel. And we're staying at that plaza, jogging through Central Park the day before, or that morning, or the day before. We get there a day ahead of time. And just being there and being kind of wined and dined by ICM, International Creative Management, we really thought we were on the precipice of the big time for sure. And we may have been, if not for a few setbacks that came a little bit later on after that.
We had been booked, ICM booked us with Dolly Parton for 13 concerts. And after her first night, which we performed opening act, she canceled the tour, and for health reasons. And it really set us back with our first album had been released, and we needed the two together to, little things like that sort of pointed us in other directions with Mercury Records, and after Warner Brothers, and Barbara Mandrell. So Barbara Mandrell's agency booked us with her, and she had a wreck and didn't work for a year and a half, a very, very tragic wreck. And those two little things right there really made a successful recording career. We didn't have the launch pad to go with it. So we had it, we just didn't get to do it.
Jack Gilfoy, did he play on any of our recordings? Yes, Jack Gilfoy to the rescue. We were recording at Jack's studio in Bloomington. First really recording experience we really ever had. And we had a drummer, and he hadn't played very long. And we didn't realize till we got into the studio that it wasn't going to work. The timing, everything was just not working. And we didn't know enough about it at the time to realize it ourselves until after we recorded. Jack came in and replaced all the drum kit, all the drumming on that. And so then when we went to Detroit, I think was maybe the next job we went to, he went with us because we didn't have a drummer.
He had to go to summer camp. Remember that?
I don't remember that at all, but all I know is he went and played with us and helped us out on at least a 2-week job, I believe. And so that was our connection with Jack Gilfoy, and that's this album, the Memorabilia Box was recorded, I think, in 73, if I'm not mistaken, 1973.
A very generous man.
He was a great guy. We loved him.
Describe the night at the Grand Ole Opry. Tim referred to that period of time when we were with International Creative Management, booking with Dolly Parton and TV shows, and we're getting all this publicity. And a fellow that worked in our band behind the scenes was the son of Grandpa Jones of the Grand Ole Opry. Mark Jones was a dear friend of ours. Well, we worked with his dad and his mom and the family in some concerts, and Grandpa Jones invited us to be on the Opry as his guest. Well, of course, I told my mother and father about it. We told them right away. My dad had listened to the Opry many, many times as a young man, and he and Mom came down, and other friends even drove down to Nashville from Indiana. We were so nervous. We're standing backstage with Jack Green, a legend, the Oak Ridge Boys, a couple of guys from the Oak Ridge Boys were there, Grandpa Jones, Jeannie Seeley was there. It's just all these people that we knew from the legendary performances of the Opry. And here we are, we're going to do it. We also know that there's no rehearsal, there's no sound check. You just walk out and you start. For some reason, he took his pedal steel guitar, which is probably a big mistake because it took time to get it ready. I have my mom and dad's 2 tickets framed with a photograph in my office. But it was, to answer your question, it was surreal because there's bright lights, you don't see the audience very well, you're just doing it, you're not hearing yourself very well.
And there's a backup band.
There's great musicians behind you helping you out, and we got a warm reception. I remember that. But to actually recall doing it, I really don't. I sort of shut down, I think. He was probably as nervous as we've ever been.
Yep. How exciting was it to appear in the movie Overboard with Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell? Our manager, Marv Dennis, who had managed us then at that time for the past 8 years, was in the Korean War with Gary Marshall, the director of Pretty Woman, Runaway Bride, several movies like that. And so they had remained friends after that time. And Marv gets a call, and Gary was returning the favor of having been in a band with our manager during the Korean War. It kept him out of having to, he said, I got to play drums instead of carry a rifle. So he always was, trying to repay Marv, our manager. So we got a call in the summer of '87, or spring, and our manager is saying, you're going to be in a movie with Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell. And you don't hear that every day, right? And, well, how's that? Well, there's going to be a scene where they need a band and blah, blah, the typical thing you see in a movie where there's somebody playing, at a wedding or something in the background. But they gave us a little camera time, but that was just a favor. But the idea of going to Fort Bragg, California, we were playing in Las Vegas at the time we got this news. So we were not that far away. We actually drove there. And it's in Northern California. Mendocino and Fort Bragg are real close to each other, where many movies have been filmed in the past. And it's so we get there, and it's talk about surreal, because that's an experience. We had a trailer with our name on it, just with the clipboard that they start a scene with, and it was just seeing Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell rehearsing one of their scenes. And we knew we were just going to be performing as a band, which we'd been doing for the past 25 years at that point, or so, 20 years. So it wasn't a big stretch for our acting abilities, but we showed up on the set, and we played the song that we had recorded the songs prior to that. We had to actually sing vocals at a studio in Las Vegas called Granny's recording studio. All the tracks, instrumental tracks, were done in Nashville. They sent them out there, and during that time we were still performing in the day or at nights in Las Vegas. Go in the studio, get the vocals done, end up in Nashville. Oh, we're going to be in another scene towards the end of the movie where they're on a miniature golf course. We've gotten back home at that time, so we're doing vocals back here as well for the other, I think it was 15 songs they asked us to record. They only picked 5 of them. So we finished recording, then we go back out again, and we had the unique experience of giving Kurt Russell's dad, Bing Russell, who played the sheriff on Bonanza, by the way. He's in Overboard as well, playing a sheriff. We got to take him to the airport in San Francisco. And he told us all about raising Kurt Russell. So it was a neat experience. It was a wonderful experience.
There was such a big music scene that it was like people were on fire for country rock. There were so many country rock groups, and they were kind of the Crosby, Stills and Nash, Woodstock, the anthem for that generation of hippies, peace, love, and dove. And we rode those coattails. That was our core of our music. We did other things, and then disco came in. And the great showrooms that we rotated to around the country, they were closing their doors to people like us, and they were having discotheques. We survived that somehow by going to Oprylands and casinos out west. Then it made a little bit of a comeback, and then the cowboys genre? What was that called? Urban cowboy. A lot of them became dance halls for that, with a bull that rocks, and so we lost more of our showrooms. And we got out of the business after the movie was made. About 1989, we quit touring and just worked around Indiana because the venues were not easily found like they were. And we got really tired of being in Nevada all the time. But then since then, the music has really, he can answer this better than me, but I swear I quit listening 10 years ago. I moved
can
to
attest
talk
to that.
radio. I couldn't listen to country music anymore because it wasn't the country music that I loved. The Larry Gatlins, the Harmony, the Statlers, the Oak Ridge Boys, the great female singers like Dolly and Loretta Lynn. It became this rock-oriented, where every voice sounded exactly the same and very washed-down formula.
You know what Tom Petty said about the whole thing?
What did he say?
Tom Petty said it's bad rock and roll with a fiddle. That's what he said.
That's what it is.
That's what he said.
Bad rock and roll with a fiddle.
That's what he said.
Tom, I love Tom Petty.
Yes.
Anyway, today's music. What do you think about today's music?
Well, I'll tell you one thing.
Tell me.
During that urban cowboy phase, you know what happened? Why we were a failure?
Why?
We didn't learn to line dance.
You're right. We should have been out there doing that.
Hey, I can line dance. Yeah.
You know, I never rode the bull either.
Well, the
Did you ever-
stagecoach wreck took care of that. You didn't need to prove anything else.
No.
You survived that. So
Yep.
that's 8 seconds at least.
Yep, that's true. We don't like today's music. Some of it's just done in somebody's garage, basement, on equipment they can buy for $3,000 and to make records. And it's not like the people he knows and worked with in Nashville, the best of the best, quit finding work years and years ago. Their work dried up because, well, we don't need him. I can play it on this little computer here.
There's all kinds of stories about in Nashville. I've still got some friends down there that are great, great musicians. And time has passed them by as well, I guess. And it's not just time, but you know, it's what happens in time. There's a revolving door in the music business, and I don't care if you're at our level or if you're at Alan Jackson. You haven't heard of him lately on the radio, have you? So it's the same thing.
Did we answer
The
that
music
question?
business has changed considerably. There's still great musicians in Nashville, but the style has changed, and it really is. But there's incredible musicians down there. There always will be.